Okay, camera's up here.
All right, what's up, guys? Welcome back to the Living the Dream podcast. Today we have Seth Erickson on the show, and he is the Chief Mischief Maker at Storify Agency. Seth, how you doing?
I'm great. It's a beautiful day today here in Texas.
Awesome. Yeah, dude, I love Texas weather. I love it. So glad to know you're a fellow Texan, and we like to jump right into the show. So if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself and some of the stuff you like to do for fun, that would be great.
Yeah, so I run an agency that primarily works with startups to help them um, better communicate their value to the marketplace and to investors. And what do I like to do for fun? I like to do all kinds of things: scuba diving, jujitsu. I produce electronic music on the side. I wrote a book. I love movies. I love music. I mean, yeah, I have a lot of things that I like to do for fun.
You said you produce electronic music on the side.
Yes.
Is that like
Yeah.
is that like playing an instrument, or is it more like on the computer kind of messing with sounds?
So I have a what they call a MIDI keyboard. So it's a shorter keyboard that I can plug into the computer, and then you run patches to the keyboard so I can play all kinds of different sounds through those patches. So some of it is using samples. Like I really don't build my own beats. It's easy to find a sample with the beat, but like melodies and chords and everything else, like I like to do that off the keyboard. So
Yeah, yeah, for sure. That's awesome. Uh, I love it. And so tell us a little bit about your motivation in life, just what gets you up day to day and gets you going.
um, well, I would say that there's a couple of things. I love helping businesses. I love seeing them grow. So that's a motivation to get up every day and help my clients do better. And with our agency, we have a very specific vision, which is that there's an often quoted statement that 90% of startups fail. And our agency, our vision is to see that number reduced by 10%. So every day waking up going, okay, how do we get that number to go down? um, and I say that because I've worked with over 100 startups, and I've only actually seen two have exits. One that was successful, and one that was more like a hostile takeover
Yeah,
than a successful exit. And the rest of them failed. And so I've often thought, is it really 90%, or is that just us trying to be positive about a really bad number? And even if you look at the like labor statistics, you find that like small businesses, a lot of them fail pretty in pretty large numbers as well. And if you can make it through your first year, you're going to be your chances drop to like 80%. If you can make it, past that, your chances drop. And so, funny enough, small businesses actually have better chance of surviving than startups do. So I'm like, well, what's the difference? Aren't they both kind of startups, right? Like a small business is essentially a startup. Most people just think of startups as being like, oh, it's a tech startup, right? Like, um, so, so there's a lot of crossover in my world between startups and small businesses. But yeah, I just I love people. I believe in people, and I want to see them succeed. And so I wake up every day trying to figure out how to do that.
gotcha, gotcha. Sounds good. And so how long have you been running at Storify?
Yeah. So Storify is actually a rebranding. We used to be called Codis Agency, and Codis Agency started in 2004. So we've been around for quite a long time. And then we rebranded right as the pandemic was starting. So always a good time to rebrand at the middle, in the middle of major economic upheaval, health upheaval. So interesting times for sure. But I started my business like when the dot com boom was happening, and it also or seemed like a bad time to be going into business. And so this is apparently how I like to roll. So
Yeah, yeah, I love it. The beautiful part about that is if you can start a business and sustain it during what's supposed to be a really bad time, when good times come, you've learned that resourcefulness. I feel like it helps your chances of success.
Yeah. I mean, you have to, I mean, if you run a small business or are an entrepreneur or startup or whatever, I mean, you have to have resilience, right? Like you have to be like, okay, things are not good right now, but if I hold on long enough, they'll get better in the future. Or if I adapt to the situation or change or pivot or however you want to say, then I can keep moving forward. But yeah, I mean, like a lot of businesses, it was like, okay, let's rebrand. We're gonna go, we're gonna start going in this direction. And then it was like, oh, everything's shutting down. And what do we do now? And um, we had to kind of change what we wanted to do, which was, build these sort of like branding packages for companies. And we just started focusing on, okay, let's uh, help with email campaigns because people aren't going to businesses. So the businesses need to contact people and start those conversations that way. Um, so we had to change some stuff, but at the same time, we've always been a virtual agency. I mean, we had offices in 2015 and then sent everybody home and said, why are we doing this? Like, let's just work from home as long as everybody's getting their stuff done. Like, we don't need to do this. So we were prepared in some ways and less prepared in other ways. But, um, you know, like, I think if you're going to do the entrepreneur thing or the small business thing or whatever, it's like, you gotta have that resilience to be like, yeah, things stink, but like, we'll figure it out and just continue to kind of push forward and try to figure it out.
Yeah, absolutely. And so with Storify, I was reading a bit about it on your matchmaker profile, and
Mhm.
there was just a huge emphasis on like telling a story and telling story for businesses. And so kind of walk us through that and like how Storify does that and like what role you play and all that good stuff.
Yeah, so we use storytelling kind of as our primary tool. And the reason we use storytelling is because it's a pattern that humans have been using and the brain recognizes. And this goes back to wherever we came from. We use stories to tell people, eat this berry, not that berry. Hunt here, don't hunt there. Do this in the wintertime, do this in the summertime. Um, we use storytelling to kind of like help educate people and communicate with them. And then those stories were passed on from generation to generation. And so even today, the human brain still reacts to story. And um, in our agency, we talk a lot about like the neuroscience side of storytelling because, lots of people can say, oh, storytelling is really powerful, right? Like it affects people, but what do we actually know beyond that, right? And so in the last 20 or so years, there's been huge strides done into neuroscience to say that like when somebody hears a story, 7 different parts of the brain light up versus 2 parts when they hear facts and figures. When more of the brain is engaged, it's easier to remember. Information. And so we focused on the storytelling to help people be understood in their message. And also, we're also talking about like how, um, you know, at the center of your brand is the story, and at the center of your story should be your customer. And so, how do all these things kind of work together and interact? And um, there's a whole lot to it. I don't think we have time, but we do spend a lot of time sort of educating people on why storytelling is powerful from a scientific perspective. It's not just our opinion, right? Like, and and once we educate our clients, then we start to kind of shift the conversation to, well, how do you create a brand, right? Like, and how do you have a conversation with your customers instead of shouting at them for attention? So that's a lot of what we do is we help these organizations develop an overall brand that's based off a story, and from that story, then it kind of guides all the actions. It helps build a culture. Um, Vision, having a vision for your company is a story. And so we kind of help people tie all these things together so that there's clarity. And then when they have that clarity, then they can go to their customers and help their customers understand and answer the question, which every person who, when they're looking at a product or a service or whatever, the question you need to be able to answer is, why the hell should I care? Or why the hell should the customer care? Right? Because they're just like, well, you do this thing and so do 10 other people. What makes you different? Why should I choose you versus them? Right? And so there's positioning, differentiation, and storytelling can help with all of that. So
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And if you're a small business owner, you're listening to this and that hits you like it just hit me. Make sure to reach out to Seth after the show. Um, for sure, man. So now we're gonna jump into the my favorite part of the podcast. It's about
Mhm.
your dreams and goals. So I'm sure there are things with your business that you have dreams and goals for. For example, decreasing the startup failure rate by 10%. But I'm sure you also have some other dreams and goals in other aspects of your life. So we get to talk about all of that. And so, yeah, what are some of your dreams?
Yeah. So, um, well, I would say for the business, I mean, the vision is, that is the kind of the guiding force, the North Star, as people will, talk about it. And so everything kind of comes from that as far as, when we wake up and go, okay, what are we going to do today? It's like, well, what can we do to push the needle forward for, these companies? And, reducing the startup failure rate by 10% has kind of a massive ripple effect, right? It helps the economy. It helps more people get their problems solved. It helps more people be employed. It helps more people hopefully have fulfilling jobs.
Yep.
um, but for me personally, my personal dreams and goals. There's more places I would love to see in the world. I've traveled a lot. I'd love to be able to go to Australia. Um, I'd love to go to Buenos Aires. I'm a big fan of travel, so there's that. And then, yeah, I'm doing the jujitsu thing, and so I would love to get a little bit further down the path and have a different color on my belt. Anybody who does jujitsu, I'm a two-stripe white belt, so I basically spend most days getting smashed on the mats, and I'd love to be able to do that. So that's kind of more of the personal stuff. I'm also working on an EP to get out on Spotify, hopefully by the end of the year, maybe beginning of next year. So that's more of a short term thing. But ultimately, um, this is the stuff that I do that is fulfilling to me. But like I said, at the end of the day, um, I want to help people, and if I can do that, um, then my dreams are fulfilled. And one of those things was writing the book How to Hack Humans. I never was like, I want to be an author, but I was like, okay, how do we help more businesses? Well, we have all this information. What if we just gave it away for like really, really cheap? And so I wrote a book, and in the book, we give a lot of actionable tips on how to do certain things, and that helps, fulfill my dream and my long-term vision. So
Yeah, for sure. Real quick, what's an EP?
extended play. So it's like 3 to 4 songs on a CD. Or like in the old days, they'd have a record and you'd have an extended play record. And so it would have 3 to 4 songs instead of just one song. So uh,
Gotcha.
sorry, industry lingo.
Yeah. No, all good, all good. I'm just glad I could ask. You had a clear answer. Well, that's great, man. I love that you kind of have your priorities, but you also have your passion projects. Jiu-jitsu is actually, it's funny. I listen to the Bigger Pockets podcast a lot. I don't know if you do, but
Mm.
David Green and Brandon Turner are like Bigger Pockets hosts, big real estate guys. I'm a big real estate guy myself, and they always talk about jujitsu. So it's been on my radar more than usual. And they also talk about getting pounded on the mat. So it was just funny to hear you mention
Yeah.
that.
Well, what I found is that there's a lot of things in life that you actually can you can apply to jujitsu. And like one of them is, I used to like be like, oh, I don't want to do this thing in my business. This is really hard, or it's annoying, or whatever. And it's like, when you have like been put into a choke or an armbar, that's a really hard thing to do. It kind of starts putting everything in perspective.
Yep.
And then you go, oh no, this thing that I'm kind of don't want to do or whatever that I think is hard, it's not hard. No, getting out of an arm bar is hard. like
Yeah.
like there's physical pain going to happen immediately if I don't tap or if I don't make the right move to get out of it. In my business, doing accounting, which I think is hard, isn't that hard. It's like just do it. So there's a lot of life lessons that you get from jujitsu, and one of them is they talk about in the startup culture failing fast. Well, if you do jujitsu, you're going to fail real fast, and you're going to find out a lot of things that you thought were going to work that didn't work, and you're going to get immediate feedback that it was a bad idea. So just to kind of tie that all together there with what you were saying.
Yeah, no, man, that's epic. They actually talk a lot about exactly that on the Bigger Pockets podcast too, that failing fast and how it kind of correlates. So
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Would you suggest that people who are like, really growth minded kind of take on something like that to where, in their daily life, they can like fail fast and like outside of business?
Yeah. So one of the things that jujitsu does that most people don't realize is it requires you to think very dynamically, right? Like people will say, "Oh, jujitsu is like chess; it's really complex," and it's like it's more like 3D chess, right? Like there's moves that are happening, there's counters to those moves, there's time slices where only a certain move will work for a specific move that they're doing for you or against you, not for you. And so it teaches you to start thinking quicker and also think more dynamically and realize that like you're working in a three-dimensional space. So I think from that aspect, yeah. Also, it doesn't look like it, but rolling around on the ground with a person is extremely physically taxing. Your cardio gets like you find out how out of shape you are when you first start jujitsu. I mean, I'd literally get on the mats and roll for 2 minutes and then just be like laying out on the mat, just gassed, like, oh, I can't move, and it's like, I'm not in that bad of shape, am I? And it's like, no, you're in really bad shape. So, so it physically puts you in better shape. It mentally helps you, with dynamic thinking. It also, smashes your ego. Like you might think, oh, I'm athletic or I'm really good at fighting or whatever, and then you get on the mat with somebody who's just a couple of stripes higher than you or a belt higher than you, and you're getting thrown around the mat like a rag doll. Like you, nobody can see us, but I'm 6'8". I had a guy who was 5'8" throwing me around the mat like I was, made out of tissue paper. And it was because I didn't know anything about jujitsu when I first started. Now people can't throw me around the mat so much, but I'm also not putting myself in those situations where that kind of stuff can happen. Um, so yeah, like I said, there's a lot of good that you can learn from it. And, if you want to get in shape or if you want to kind of expand your thinking, to think more dynamically, think quicker, I think all those things are probably good for you running your business, because if like your thinking is kind of narrow or you're out of shape, like that's going to affect your business. So I think it's kind of, getting that health component in alignment with the mental component and, putting those things together are only going to do good for your business. So that's
Absolutely. I love it. I love it. You guys heard him. Go start jujitsu. Awesome. So what caused you to take the first steps towards your business, towards Storify?
Yeah. So in 2015, our we were having our best year under Codis agency. We were doing web design, doing lots of design for different things, posters and annual reports and things like that. And I would go back to my customers and say, how did this help you? Like, can we measure the results of changing the design or updating the website or creating this magazine or whatever? Like, did sales go up? Did you get contacted more? Like just basic stuff. Well, no, but we're really happy with the design. I'm like, okay. And I basically started to become sort of dissatisfied in the fact that I wasn't pushing the needle forward for my clients. I'm like, I got into business to help people. I like helping people and I want to see their businesses grow. I want to see them succeed. And while there's a certain joy in them being like, we really love the work you did for us, I wanted to see them succeed. And so I started to become dissatisfied. And so in 2015, I kind of was like soul searching. And a friend of mine goes, dude, you're a storyteller. Like that's your thing. He's like, every time I talk to you, you got a story about something. He's like, everything that you do is a story. Your life is a giant story. And I was like, well, okay, but how do you make money as a storyteller? Um, and he said, well, read this book. It was called Story Wars by Jonas Sachs. And in the book, it was about an agency owner who was using storytelling to help with like these different like social causes and things that he was working on. And I'm not so much of a social cause kind of guy. I'm more of a let me help your business kind of guy. Like I leave the social causes to my customers and whatnot. But I was like, okay, this is really interesting stuff. So how do I apply this? And I basically went on a huge binge on Audible. Read over 50 books on storytelling in about a year because I like to read things at 2x or 3x and or listen to them anyway. And in those books, they started talking about neuroscience, and I was like, well, there's science behind all this stuff. It's not just somebody's opinion about storytelling or whatever. And so I read all those, or I read not all the research papers. I read several hundred research papers, which ironically they talked about how powerful storytelling was, but they wrote their research papers without telling a story. It's like, that's ironic. Like,
Leave it to
uh,
academia.
yeah. So it's like, so I went down this neuroscience rabbit hole and I was like, okay, so this isn't just opinion. This is scientifically proven stuff. So that's good. We now have a better understanding of how the human brain works. We know that like when something is in a story format, that the brain responds to it much more favorably, which helps with all these other things like memory retention, um, and uh, and and so we need to use that format. And I read a lot of marketing stuff, but it was like a lot of like psychological stuff, but it wasn't necessarily story driven. And then I got into branding, and branding, more people in branding were talking about storytelling. And I was like, okay. So I kind of put all that stuff together and said, let's do this instead of just being really good at design. Right. Our focus as an agency before was like, we're really good designers. We win awards, you know, we're cutting edge. We're, you know, and so we started changing. And so um, we started applying some of the storytelling to our existing clients because we were kind of like, well, we believe that this works. The science says it works, so let's test it. And so we started testing it and changing the way that we were writing copy for websites, changing the way that we were writing copy for email campaigns and different things like that. And we started to see big returns. Like our one of our clients, like their open rate was like um, triple what the industry standard was. Their click-through rate was like, 4 times what the industry standard was. And it was like, okay, this is working. And so we kind of did what startups do, which is, we had a theory, we went out to the marketplace, we tested it and said, oh, this is working. And then, I went back to the team and I was like, we're actually moving the needle for our clients for the first time, right? This isn't just, they're happy with the design or whatever. We won some award. We're actually seeing people responding and clicking and sales going up and, different things happening. And so I said, let's rebrand the agency because CODIS is a made up word. Like we just made it up. We needed a name for the company. We called it CODIS. Storify is an actual word. Most people think, oh, that sounds like, Shopify or Spotify or whatever, but Storify actually means to tell or narrate in story. So we said, let's brand ourselves with the name that actually makes sense to what we're doing, which is helping companies tell better stories. So that's kind of how that was kind of the starting point, the call to adventure, if you will, in the hero's journey. and going through that and like I said, testing it with existing clients and then going, okay, let's rebrand, let's focus on this because we're actually seeing tangible results from what we're doing, as opposed to that looks really cool, that looks really nice, we like our new website.
Yeah, no, for sure. I love that. There were a lot of things that you just dropped. You did it so casually. I want to take the time to kind of point it out. The first thing I really liked was your like intense desire to actually move the needle for your clients. A lot of people will just be in things for the money or will like kind of lose focus on why they got in, which was to help people. You stayed focused on that. It led to that dissatisfaction, which also started happening things, led to that conversation with your friend. And so, one, it's important to like act on dissatisfaction, keep your why in mind, but also like the fact that your friend was able to look into your life and be like, you're a storyteller.
Mhm.
And then that kind of started the process. It's important to have people around you who can do that. And so I just really like those three things in particular. And also how much you grinded when you started researching storytelling. That is admirable. 50 books in
Yeah,
a year.
it
That's
yeah, it was pretty intense, but like it just hit me. Like he said it to me and I was like, well, okay. But then when I read the book, it was like I got struck by lightning. It was like, huh, something's going on here. And so yeah, I kind of went like ravenous into reading it or having books read to me. um and yeah, like I just like you said, I was dissatisfied. It was like we're making really good money, and we won like a Webby Award, which is like the Grammy for web awards, and it was like, oh, that's really cool, but at the end of the day, it was like, well, I don't want my clients to pay me a bunch of money and then what I'm doing for them just makes them happy. I want their business to grow. I want to see them succeeding. I don't want them to become another failure, right? Like I want to help them not do that. But, to your point in the storytelling and the hero's journey and all that stuff, every hero needs, a mentor or a guide to come in and say, hey, have you thought about this? Or maybe you should do it this way instead of that way. Or I know something you don't know, so let me teach you how to do this thing. And that's kind of what my friend did for me. And you got to have quality people in your life to be able to, just give you that kind of feedback, right? Like, because if you don't have those people, then you'll end up like going way off course
yeah.
sometimes. So yeah, that he was yeah, the guy is actually he was the former head of international branding for GoDaddy. And so I thought, yeah, he probably knows what he's talking about. Maybe,
Probably.
maybe just a little. So
Yeah, for sure. Well, awesome, man. I love that story on taking that first step. I think it definitely added a lot of value, definitely to me. And so, yeah, thank you for that. But if there were one or two people that you could meet right now that would help you take the next step in your storify journey, who would they be and how would they do it?
um well, I don't know that it would be a specific person, like somebody that like the audience would know, like saying, "Oh, Elon Musk," right? Like,
Mhm.
I could tell you the type of people, would be founders, small business owners, entrepreneurs, that we could work with, right? Because that would again push us closer to our goal. Specifically venture capital firms, because a lot of venture capital firms will have multiple startups under their umbrella. And, if we could work with them directly and have them say, hey, you should work with Storify, then again, the more startups we can work with, the more that we can start to affect that number. And, at the end of the day, it, we may not hit 10%. 10% is like a 20-year goal, right? But if at the end of 20 years it was only 5%, I would still did, or I would still say we did a hell of a lot more than other people have done
Yeah.
to be able to hit that. And so yeah, so those, it would be those types of people. But I don't have like a, like I said, a Steve Jobs or Elon Musk, like some sort of like, you know super famous person like that, because those guys are like, they're in a different stratosphere anyway, and with what they're doing. And so yeah, it would be, like I said, it would be the founders, it would be the VCs, the incubators, the accelerators, people who run those types of things, being able to work with them and teach their startups how to actually communicate, because like a lot of these founders go to school and they're great with tech, or somebody's great with the skill that they have, but they didn't take a storytelling class. They maybe took lit, maybe one communications class, but they didn't, go to school to learn about branding and, marketing and all this other stuff. They went to school to get really good at what they did or do. And so that's where we kind of see things falling down, where it's like, I spent, 4 years at MIT and I know everything about artificial intelligence and I'm going to create this startup, but then you can't communicate the value and answer the question, why should the customer care? Because you didn't take any of those branding or marketing classes. And so we're trying to kind of fill that gap and, hopefully make people more successful in the process. So.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I'm glad you answered like that, because when I'm asking this question, I need to rephrase it, because I want the question to hit on the aspect that there's somebody that can either directly help you, like, get your service out there, like you said, or maybe a person who is one or two steps ahead of you in a similar journey that can really help you take that next step. So like maybe a person who knows a lot of venture capitalists that can help you take that next step into meeting all the venture capitalists.
Yeah, like a networker type person that could be like, hey, I could introduce you to this guy over here at this VC, or this person here at this incubator, this person that runs this startup conference or whatever. It would be that, or like I said, we've got a book out now which is called How to Hack Human Storytelling for Startups. If there was somebody that could be like, I could get your book in more people's hands. Yeah. Because like I said, I didn't hold anything back when I wrote the book. Lots of people will write, oh, storytelling is great, you should use it, but you need to hire me, right, to figure out how to actually apply it to your business. The final third of the book is like, here's how to write an email, here's how to update your copy, here's how to update your website. Like, I don't hold anything back in the book. I'm like, take my stuff and use it, please, so that you can be more successful, like, so yeah, if I could get the book in more people's hands, or if I could get in front of larger audiences, or if I could talk to more of the right people, yeah, that would, but yeah, like, I don't know, like you said, that might be like a networker type person who just has those connections. So
yeah, for sure. Okay, well, I feel like that kind of answers our next question, which is the one or two things that everyday people can do to help you accomplish. It's like introducing you to those people, getting you on those platforms type of thing.
Yeah.
So awesome. We're going to jump right into our thriving three. I just love to hear about how people thrive in their life. And so I like to ask you about how you're taking in information, how you like to care for yourself, and how you're executing. So what's your favorite book, movie, or podcast?
Oh man. So many favorite movies, so many favorite books. I'm trying to, like, right now I'm reading like 5 different books. Well, again, I'm having them read to me. Audible, like, I'm on Audible constantly consuming information, whether it's on business, branding, entrepreneurship, marketing. I'm just always trying to learn. And so to say, oh, what's your favorite book? Well, I read over 100 books last year alone. Like, and I just kind of pull from, I pull from these different sources, and kind of like it becomes an amalgamation of understanding and learning. And so while there's books that I've learned really great things from, like, I don't know if one stands out, right? Like as the one. I mean, if you want to become a better storyteller, teller, The Hero's Journey by Joseph Campbell is a great book. But like, if you want to learn, how to treat customers better, Vaynerchuk has, several books. Like, it's like, which book for which topic? You know what I mean? Like, I have a hard time breaking that down. All-time favorite movie, Star Wars episode, 6, 5, 6, 7. I remember seeing Return of the Jedi in the movie theaters. It was the first movie that I saw as a child. You would think it would have been like something Bugs Bunny or something like that, but no, it was Return of the Jedi. I saw that in the movie theater. And that was my first experience. I didn't even know what a movie was. I remember asking my parents, what is it? And they said, well, it's like a play. I was like, we're going to go watch a play. And they were like, no, but it's like on a projection, it's on a big screen. So is it like TV? Well, no, it's not exactly like TV. Like I had lots of questions. And so, but that movie has always kind of stuck with me because, like I said, it was my first. Um, so I'll go with that. And then, was there something else that I was supposed to answer in there that
Really,
I
really, we're supposed to only pick one, so that's
Oh
plenty.
man, I'm all over the place. Sorry.
No, you're all good. You're all good. What's one way you like to care for yourself?
um Actually it's going to see new movies like on a Friday. Like I'll just take the afternoon off, go get some popcorn, go watch a new movie, take some it's like an escape away from business and
Some you time.
and that's yeah, it's like I don't nobody has to go with me. I'm happy to go to a movie by myself and just enjoy it. And it's like I get away from work, but also I'm getting kind of fed with new ideas and concepts as I'm watching these movies, which are all just essentially stories. And so sometimes I could come out of there and it's like, oh, I really like that part. How can I tie that into something that we're doing? Or I sometimes I've come out of the movie being really critical and going, why would you tell a story like that? That was terrible. But it's just but yeah, it's that getting away. So it's kind of the mental health. And then, again, I'm going to give you a second answer, which is jujitsu, because that's also the physical, right? Like getting in shape, putting your body through challenges and recovery and getting stronger, getting smarter, so because I just don't think we're not just one thing. None of us are, right? And so there's different aspects, right? Like there's the spiritual, there's the physical, there's the mental. So yeah, it's
Absolutely.
hard to just give you one answer on that.
No, all good, all good. What is one action step you can take right now or continue to take to start meeting either more venture capitalists and more of the people you need to meet, or the one or two people that will really just open you up to that whole group?
Um, well, I mean, I'm taking that step right now by talking to you, right? Like I'm getting on different podcasts, I'm sharing my message, and I'm promoting the book mainly because I don't care if I make $1 million on the book. What I care about is getting the book in people's hands and then having them go, oh, I need to change my thinking around how I'm, promoting my business or how I'm communicating with my customers. So, so it's all interlinked, right? Like the more I can get, my message in front of people, the more that I'm going to meet people, share my vision. People who think that that vision is worthwhile and supporting are going to hopefully contact me or, buy the book and start applying those things in their business. So, you know, talking to you is doing it right now, real
Yeah,
time.
epic. I love it. Well, awesome, Seth. Thanks so much for being on the show. Is there anything else you want to chat about before we sign off?
No, I think we've covered quite a bit. Um, Other than, yeah, I mean, if you want to check me out, my website is https colon / www.storify agency. Storify is STORIFY agency.com. And yeah, and if you want to check out the book, it's called How to Hack Humans, Storytelling for Startups. It's on Amazon and Kindle, paperback, and hardcover of all things. So and there'll be a audiobook coming out probably next year. So
Epic. I love it. And all of that will also be in the show notes because I'm sure he sent it over. And if he didn't, I will definitely get it from him because I do want everybody to read that book. I really want to read that book. Yeah. So you guys heard him. If you want to contact him, get his book, stay in touch. If you heard what he was talking about and you loved it, take action on it and start applying it to your life. Like, let's make Seth's dreams come true by spreading the message and applying it. And thank you guys so much for being on the show and listening. Go like it on Apple, and we're out.